Akiva.
Daniel Geller, what are
It's
you
so
doing
good to see
here?
you. What am I? Yeah, I've got a weekly appointment actually. Standing meeting.
That's awkward. So do I.
I don't think that's awkward.
I hope everyone out there is very excited because you have a different background today. I missed the flag. I missed the Israeli flag and the American flag, and now you're in Israel and you don't have a flag.
I'm working on it. Also, the background, like the light, it's not going to work now. But let me tell you, once we're going to start doing schmooze on location. So you'll come to Israel. It'll be great. We'll schmooze in front of all the hot spots. It's going to be fantastic.
Totally go to the UAE and the schmooze will pay for it.
Which means we'll pay for it.
Tell no one. Welcome everyone to the schmooze. This week's schmooze is sponsored. This is typically your job, Daniel. I'm going to say it this time. This week's schmooze is sponsored by Shalom Trivia. It is an app that you can find on Google Play and the App Store. What the app does is for 6th to 12th graders, and every day they can answer Jewish trivia or learn Jewish trivia, and they get actual gift cards for Starbucks, Amazon, or summer scholarships. That's right. Israel is vaccinating by the hundreds of thousands, and God willing, NCSY summer trips are going to be open to Israel this summer. NCSY is taking over 2,000. That's 2,000 with 3 zeros. Teens to Israel this summer on a variety of different programs. And it's looking really optimistic. It's looking really great. You can win not only gift cards, but scholarships in the hundreds of dollars to their programs on Shalom Trivia. Download it now. If you haven't downloaded it already, we have over 700 people who are, I'm saying we because it's my app. I made it. And with I didn't write the code, other people did. Shout out Chaim Peneth and Shlomo Dobkin and others. However, it is my brainchild and my baby. But we do have hundreds and hundreds of people who play every day, so it's fantastic. Get on it.
That's so exciting. Am I allowed to sign up for it?
No, we discriminate.
And I'm pretty sure you just said, like, I like to think we're friends, and you said this is your thing, so I'm kind of missing like why I'm not allowed to. But
I was excited because it's Shalom Trivia. You'll do all the rest of the weeks.
Oh, okay.
So Israel, are you vaccinated already?
No, but so because I just got here, like I'm not officially signed up with my health insurance company, so. But yeah, it's unclear how it works. But like yesterday, on a very exciting and serious note, Israel vaccinated its 500,000th person in Israel. So it's like you need to think because again, it's a global pandemic, right? In case you haven't heard this before.
I've heard, yeah.
So all resources, literally anything and everything. The army is sending their medics and training their medics how to vaccinate.
I was wondering if I was a medic in the IDF, meaning my reserves are as a medic. I was wondering if they were utilizing the medics in the army.
Yeah, so and you need to think like in Israel we have these kupots. It's like doctors' offices in essence. So like there are thousands, and they're like governments. It's like kind of socialized medicine here. Like everybody gets health insurance here. It's not a question. Like if you want to, you can pay for a more advanced plan, which is like for me $20 a month. So yeah, but it's.
Well, I just want to say to all our Hamas listeners, please don't attack now. Like we really need all the medics working on the vaccine. Can they wait a few months? Just to the Al Qaeda.
That wasn't funny. Oh my god.
Funny?
No, I didn't think so. But anyways, so amazing times here in Israel. We're actually in a lockdown. This is the third one for the country, where your movement is more limited. You can't travel as much, and if you want to, it's like there's shtick in Israel. It's like one of the rules is that if you're working out, like if you're going for a run, you can go any distance. It doesn't matter. So everyone just like walks around wearing workout clothing. So like, they're not going to get a ticket.
I saw a great meme which said that the first lockdown was Doraita, like Torah level. The second lockdown was Durabanan, rabbinical. And this third lockdown is more like a minhag. It's a custom, some people do.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. It's got good shtick to it. It's also like things don't make sense. Like you can order food from restaurants, but it has to be delivered. So like there are 20 restaurants on my block. So I'm like, I can't come pick it up, so I need to wait for somebody else to pick it up. And
it's like 1 minute away.
Right.
Wait 40 minutes for the delivery to get there.
But yeah, it's really, Rabbi, I'm looking forward to our Israel UAE trip, so you can come experience all this with me. But on a political side of things, something special about being in Israel is that it's Torah is very much, and Judaism it's the Jewish state. It's like built into the fabric here. So there's a debate in Knesset where they brought in like expert witnesses about, can we vaccinate on Shabbos? Ooh. Can we administer, in theory, a life-saving preventative medicine on Shabbat? In essence, breaking Shabbat, being Mechalel Shabbat. But it's and it was like a crazy discussion because like people start quoting halacha, like they start quoting Jewish law, right? You know, like about how the law, like, no, you're forcing the medics to break Shabbos for preventative illness, but maybe it could be acceptable if they're high risk people. You know, like it's unbelievable. Only in Israel do you have this.
I was gonna say this sounds like a schmooze level question. I'm surprised that the Knesset hasn't called us yet, because this is very classic schmooze. Speaking of the UAE, let's invite on our guest, who I'm super pumped to have on because he just came back from the UAE.
For that and so much more, we're so excited to welcome Nachum Segal, host of the Nachum Segal Network, and longtime radio personality here in the Jewish community. Welcome on, Nachum.
Nachum, thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you here. I'm not going to lie, your setup is a little bit intimidating for some common day schmoozers like us, but it is so great to have you here.
I appreciate that, and thank you both for having me on. It's the first time that I've ever been interviewed by Rabbi Akiva, which is amazing. You figure a great figure like that in Jewish history would have time to do someone like me, and look at this. We have Daniel Geller and Rabbi Akiva. Amazing.
Stop. Great to have you on, Nachum. So excited. I have been on your show many times. I could only repay the favor in this way. We actually started this entire show just for this moment. This is the last show. No, I'm kidding. This is not the last show. This is continuing. We're welcome to episode 11. We're so excited to have you on and talk about yourself, Nachum Segal Network. We know you just came back from the UAE, from Dubai.
Yep.
We're so excited to hear about that. Let's kind of build up to that. Can you tell us, when did you start the show? Why did you start the show? Tell us a little bit about the show. What's your passion? What are some of the goals? The show, obviously, your show didn't start last week. The show's been going around for years. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's it's hard to do this in a few minutes, but I'm going to accept the challenge and try.
Okay, we can just do a 2-hour segment. Go.
There you go. Now we're talking. That could be more relaxed. 39 years ago, I walked into WYUR, which is the radio station on Yeshiva University's campus. And I, of course, like everybody else, was applying to do a rock and roll show, which is basically, what everybody wanted to do. And as I'm online, someone says to me, I'm filling out the application. Someone says, what are you applying for? I said, I'm applying for a rock and roll show. He says, listen to me very carefully. If you apply for a rock and roll show, you have almost no chance of getting a show because everybody's applying for rock and roll. If you apply for a Jewish music show, there's a very good chance. So immediately I erase rock and roll and I write, I'm interested in the Jewish music show. And sure enough, that next Thursday night, I started my college radio career. And very much so, when I went to WFMU, which was the main radio station I was at for so many years until 4 years ago, when I went to, it was really an upgrade of a college radio show. It was dedications and requests, and it was happy birthday greetings, and and trying to incorporate as much of community, not just information, but community people. Sure. Shout out to this one, hello to that one, etc.
Right.
And that's what it became. But then soon afterwards, thank God, which was always a dream of mine, it built into a radio show that really became the radio program of record in the Jewish world. Wow. Especially in the period of the 90s and early 2000s. When there was very little other communication for people. There was no social media, etc. And what we did was we incorporated Jewish music as the basic staple of the show. But on top of that, a lot of Divrei Torah, a lot of government officials, a lot of community organizational heads, and really turned it into the show that there's always something going on. There's always something interesting being spoken about, always an interesting event coming up, always something interesting that we're focusing on. And that became a really, really popular effort. To the point, and this has happened before in radio, not everybody believes it when I say that.
Okay.
To the point where our brand got so big that the radio station I was at and the Nachum Segal Network, which we had become a 24-hour digital network, basically felt the best thing for us to do would be to have an amicable divorce. And it was all friendly and nice, but it ended in December of 2016. And since then, we've been all digital. I loved it there. I don't want people to get the impression I didn't absolutely love the radio station. I loved it, and I slept there during blizzards, and I would have done anything for it. And my wife knows that the radio station was my first love, so it's not like, all that's out in the open. But now with freedom and independence, I've been able to grow this thing even more. And one of the things we did toward the end of the WFMU career, or that piece, was incorporate a Jewish Unity Initiative, where we felt there are communities around the world that need to be brought through our airwaves to our audience. And that's why when it came to 2015, we went to France and put on a concert as a memorial to those who had been murdered in the hypercacher supermarket attack, and to show solidarity with our brothers and sisters in France. It made quite an impression, that trip. The next year we did Venice on the 500th anniversary of the Jewish ghetto, and brought a Jewish music concert for a Malava Malka that Saturday night to Venice. And of course, we went to Houston twice after flooding in the Jewish community there. We went to Pittsburgh twice, once right after the attack and once a year later. Two very different shows, by the way. Consoling a community right after an attack and consoling a community a year later is a very different experience.
Can you tell what was what highlight? Can you highlight what was the difference between the shows?
Well, first of all, on the first, and you know this after all these years, we knew there's very little availability in the first show. Anybody we want is busy. They are unfortunately having funerals, which was the case. We got there and they were literally in the middle of 2-3 funerals in the community. They're in the middle of funerals. Even the rabbi, who is, somebody who a year later would be an amazing host, not that he wasn't a good host the first time around, but you get my point, and would be available to us to speak to on, about anything having to do with the community. He just wasn't around. He was dealing with so many different things for everybody, for people in the Orthodox community and the other communities that make up the greater Jewish community of Pittsburgh. So it was just a different kind of show. One of my amazing memories of the second show a year later was that someone came on the air and told the story how a 1-year memorial was planned by the mayor of Pittsburgh. I don't remember the mayor of Pittsburgh's name. I wish I did right now, but it's the mayor of Pittsburgh. And a year later, a memorial, get together in a park with people of all backgrounds and, pay proper tribute, etc. They were expecting a monsoon, literally. And they said to the mayor, okay, obviously we're moving this event. He said, no, we're not moving the event. Wow. What are you talking about? What do you mean not moving the event? It must be on this. I don't care. There's 7 people there and they all have umbrellas and overcoats. It must be on this day. And they were all curious, like, what's going on? The event happened. And the next day in Pittsburgh's main newspaper, the mayor had put a full-page ad in describing how this event was timed to be on the anniversary of Kristallnacht. That this was his idea and his tribute to Jewish history. It's not just Pittsburgh, but we are with Jews of every generation who have gone through this 1,000,000 times.
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah, that was a very powerful. Now, of course, for a million obvious reasons and other reasons, that story couldn't be told the year before, obviously. So it's just a different makeup. We did the first show from one of the synagogues because we just needed a place. The second time around, we sought out the JCC, which was the perfect location for us. If you know anything about the Pittsburgh community, it is so united. And I know we always use that word, but certainly compared to what I'm used to in the New York, New Jersey area, not to put anybody down here, but they go out of their way. Shavuos night is is people of all backgrounds coming to the JCC and hearing rabbinic leaders of all backgrounds.
Wow.
And the Orthodox rabbis do it that way there because they feel it's the right, and you can't imagine the impression that it makes on the community. Again, I don't know if it would work in New York. I'm just saying that that's the reality. So, so we went to Pittsburgh, went to Houston, went to Atlanta and did a community fair. We went to Atlanta, did a community fair trip where we literally invited people from Birmingham, Atlanta, Jacksonville, Tampa, all these different places to come and speak to us about their communities. So this has been, a very big passion of mine to get out there, to bring messages and unity to those communities, and at the very same time, to bring all these messages back. The UAE, we were presented with an ultimatum. If you guys don't go now, if you go 6 months from now, it's going to be nothing. Everyone's going to be going six months from now. So if you want this story and you want it to be fresh and you want these messages to come back and people will think, oh my gosh, these messages is what I learned from the Nachum Segal Network, you got to do it now. So we went. The main message of the trip, I don't know if this was our intention, but in retrospect, the main message of the trip is that just like other periods of time in Jewish history, there are non-Jewish communities who have a strong desire to live in peace with Jews. And for us, 20th century Yeshiva League products, and when I say Yeshiva League, I don't mean yeshivish, I mean modern Yeshiva League products. That's how we refer to it here in the New York, New Jersey area. You guys are Florida and Maryland, right? So originally, so you're not used to the Yeshiva League up here. But our day schools and high schools are in what we call the Yeshiva League, in terms of sports. I was referred to the Yeshiva League community. For somebody who grew up in 20th century Yeshiva League, and this is not a criticism of those who taught me and those who taught my colleagues, because that was the reality in the 20th century, where we were taught that there's no such thing as someone from the Islamic world who has any desire to live in peace with Jews. Boy, did we learn a lesson over there. And we brought this message back, and that was the article I wrote, and that was the broadcast that I did. I mean, I'm sitting in Dubai, and I know you want to move on to other questions, which we'll get to, I'm sure, but just let me tell you this story. I'm sitting in Dubai with somebody in the white robe, a businessman, an Emirati businessman, who, again, if I saw him dressed like this in Ramallah, I would, probably walk the other way. And he's talking to me about the Dallas Cowboys. And he's talking, and this is interview. It's a Thursday morning of our trip, first hour. You should listen to it. I even have the transcript of it. Talking to me about the Dallas Cowboys and talking about Troy Aikman and the era where he was in Harvard and fell in love with American football. Claims, listen to this. This is someone from the Arabian Gulf, right? You'd think soccer would be his favorite sport. Claims that I wish I had the transcript in front of me. Claims that American football is God's greatest gift to humanity. You can go listen to the interview. So I'm saying to myself, wow, I could actually relate to this person. He was in his 40s, serious businessman. He's telling me that when he went to Harvard and lived 2 blocks from Fenway Park, he knew he couldn't wear a Red Sox hat to Times Square when he would visit New York. And I'm like, what? How do you know this? But that's the reality, is that when you're open to other societies and ready to learn and ready to understand, he doesn't want to live like me. He doesn't want to dress like me. But the fact that he has this ability to relate to others, it was funny. In that interview, he tells us what it was like being a rational Muslim after 9/11. And, especially he had been in America. So he knew, because in the 90s, Troy Aikman, it was in the 90s that he was, in the United States. And he's saying to himself, I know what's going on there. They there's not an American that's ever going to trust anybody from the Muslim religion again. And just hearing all that and, just being able to relate to so much of what he's saying, that was just fascinating. So that's just, we met somebody from what's it called in India? Jew Road, I think it's called, who grew up near Jew Road. I think it's Jew Road, Jew Village, Jew Road, in Cochin, India. And now he learned Hebrew, and he's a calligraphist, and he drew everyone's name on the air in Hebrew. Like I said, okay, Miriam Wallach is there. I said, okay, Mem. And Mem. I said, wait a second. When I say Mem, you know what I know that. I know that. Anyway, so that's just a couple of examples of people we met.
Wow. Now you should really just keep going. Like this is.
I'm not sure what direction you want to go in here.
You have the setup better than us, so it seems like you're better prepared for this. But okay, Akiva knows I have an obsession with peace. It happens to be we were discussing a schmooze trip to Dubai, but it seems like the Nachum Segal network already beat us to it.
Look, the advantage of a schmooze trip or any trip is that you don't have to have my experience or even speak to the people I spoke to have that experience. You're in the hotel, you're going to feel that Muhammad behind the desk is really a sincere individual who wants to just service you as a guest in the hotel. And you're going to walk in the mall and be fascinated with people walking up to you. What is that on your head? And what is it all about? And why do you wear it? And, the people from Vietnam and from Pakistan and India, because remember, the UAE is filled with people from everywhere who are stopping you in the elevator. Tell me about your people. Are you from Israel? Not from Israel? Tell me about those I see here from Israel. What language is being spoken? And I'm like, what? You care about this stuff? You actually want? Yeah, we're regular human beings who have a fascination with other traditions, just like, we often have a fascination with other traditions and other people. And that's what they want to experience. It would look for me, again, not blaming anybody. I grew up, 6-day wartime, not blaming anybody. The what we were taught was, or at least the way things came across, was you can't trust anybody with that background. And boy, as you could hear, this was a life-changing experience for me.
Wow, really incredible. coming from the experience of people asking me where my horns are in the mall, I think I might like the UAE slightly better than America. But okay, we can talk about the UAE all day, but I really want to get into when Akiva and I, when we were planning the Schmooze, we were discussing, unveiling the greatness that lies in the Jewish community. Like all day, we'll be saying Mika Amcha Yisrael, who's like the nation Israel, but we see every day the people that many people know and have radio shows, and others who are just behind the scenes creating amazing content for the Jewish people or for the pro-Israel movement. So when I just saw you hosted a program on Amudim, which we mentioned last week. When you look at the Jewish community, what are the things that are the most striking? What are the hidden gems that you really see shine through?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, I've always harped on the theme of Jewish heroism, and people sometimes roll their eyes when I describe what I mean by Jewish heroism. But I'm not minimizing real Jewish heroes. Believe me, Roe Klein to me is the truest Jewish hero. But what I mean is that when I speak about Jewish heroes, when someone is in the Goldman Sachs office and they are dedicating their life in a non-Jewish environment, or secular environment, be more accurate, in a secular environment, to pursuing a career that they enjoy, and one where hopefully if they are able to make a good living at it, they're only going to help, our community. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Helping our community and people in our community. But when that person is in that environment and is presented with non-kosher food at every meal and meeting imaginable, and has a real challenge to make mincha by 4:30, and has a challenge to make shachar sometimes because, the schedule in places like that can be crazy. Some of the young people in that industry will tell you how many hundreds of hours they're working, per month. When that person specifically goes out of their way to keep a Seder and Talmud study, for instance, regular time, to me, all that's heroism. Joe Lieberman walking miles to his nominating convention, or nominating when he ran for governor, when he ran for senator, against Lowell Weicker, when he ran for senator in October of 1988, and went to go to the nominating convention, which I think was either Schmooze or one of the holidays in October. I don't remember exactly what it was. And he has to walk through. That to me is Jewish heroism. And some people laugh at that notion. But I think, I don't think it's as much of a challenge when one is in a Jewish environment to continue to increase their Torah study, to make the minyanim, to be focused on Jewish music and Jewish audio material as opposed to secular music and audio material. And to me, that there's a degree of heroism to that. And I think that has to be recognized. One of my favorite stories is, Eli Libin, who's very well known in the area of, I don't want to say electronics, I would be selling him short, but very well known in the area of satellites and the, I'm trying to think what it's called. What's it called? The something Prism. I forgot what it's called. But anyway, he's hired by everybody from the Super Bowl to the World Series to the U.S. Open to every national convention to make sure that everything operates well. That when I go to the Republican National Convention, my cell phone will work. That's what he's assigned to do, to make sure everything goes properly. And when the television trucks are broadcasting the Super Bowl, they're all set up properly. So he tells a story how there was an emergency at the Omni in Atlanta, the old arena in Atlanta, during one of the conventions. I think it was in the 1980s or 90s. And they came and got him from the hotel and said emergency. And he went and walked 3 miles. It was a summer. It was a convention in Atlanta. The weather was like this summer. Walked 3 miles with an escort. Somebody obviously was driving next to him to make sure but he insisted that, now, again, he wouldn't consider it heroism, because would he ever think of anything else? Obviously not. But to me, that someone goes ahead under dire circumstances, we need you, it's an emergency, right? We need it, and says, okay, but this is a priority over the emergency. Getting there in 45 minutes rather than getting there in 4.5 minutes is now the priority for me. That to me is just wonderful.
I think it's incredible, and I think I don't think you're wrong at all. I think you're 100% right. Like heroes never think of themselves as heroes. And, I'm in the Bay Area, and like for me, like, and I'll meet a teen. I learned with this one teen, and all of her friends don't keep Shabbat. All of her friends don't keep kosher. Like, this is not the environment that she's in. And she is now, finishing up high school, and she keeps Shabbat and keeps kosher. And for her, it's like, of course I keep Shabbat. Of course I keep kosher because that's what my family does. But I'm looking at it from the side. I'm like, how are you still doing this? Like, I also keep kosher, but like and it's inspiring, and it is real. That's a hero. A heroine in this situation.
It's so funny because I do this every time. You talk about things I've done consistently in my career. Whenever I have anybody on the air who has become a more observant Jew, who's really incorporated Shmira Shabbos, observing Shabbos, etc., into their lives, which of course is one of the hallmarks of becoming an observant Jew. I even till this day I'll ask them, why on earth, if you had an opportunity to stay in a normal, libertarian, chilled out environment, would you possibly want to add the pressure of being an Orthodox Jew? And it's funny, today I played on the air a diaspora song where Avram Rosenblum does the whole closing, and at the end he says, "Thank you, Hashem," like that. And I literally said to myself, at this age, I'm still saying it to myself, like, if I had him on the air even today, and I've asked him this 10 times already, but if I had him on even today, I'd go right back to the beginning of his journey and say to him, why on earth? By the way, not that TJJ needs a commercial here, but I do the same thing to those kids that I interviewed at NCSY Cola. When we go there during the summer, they bring a couple of TJJ kids, and I'm like, do you know that every one of your friends in school right now is, water skiing on the West Coast? Like, do you know that? And you want to explore Judaism? Like, what? And they look at me like I'm crazy. And of course, it's somewhat tongue in cheek. Everybody out there, relax. I'm raising my kids okay. Don't worry. You get the point.
We can all attest to that. You've met so many people over your, decades of radio. Can you share with us? Who would be, we're talking about like heroes in the Jewish community, and like Daniel was saying, the gems in the Jewish community. Is there someone that comes to mind, or a certain maybe instance, a person or incident that comes to mind that kind of rises above it? It's like, wow, that was innovative or inspiring or different. Someone who's making a real difference. Anyone come to mind?
Two things on this, if I may. The first is, and look, I mean, he would laugh if he was here that I'm saying this, but my mantra for the last quarter of a century has been the future of the Jewish peoples in the state of Israel. Rabbi Josh Fass, I mean, the fact, not only is he a hero, but the fact that I have the opportunity to work with him and to tell the world about what he does, to me, is unbelievable. Those of you who don't know, look up Nefesh B'Nefesh, Rabbi Josh Fass. That's number one.
Great.
The other thing that came to mind when you mentioned that was, it made such an impression on me, I forgot it. The other thing, and this is not, look, he's a hero, the person I'm about to discuss, but this episode I felt was something that could only happen to me, which makes it so much more meaningful, and that God has put me in this position is just such a bracha to me. I've met Natan Sharansky more than once. Again, if you don't know who he is, folks, Natan Sharansky, refusenik, who finally left the old Soviet Union in 1986 in an American spy exchange, went to Israel, and he always spoke, and I believe it's in his books, he always spoke about the effect that the 6-Day War had on Russian Jewry. That once they had heard what Israel had done, I mean, we know this about all Jews around the world, but it gave such a measure of pride to Russian Jews who were being oppressed. It's one thing that all of us around the world were, got this measure of pride, but imagine oppressed Jews who are being told that they're nothing, that their religion and background and tradition and heritage is nothing. And now the Israelis go and do this, in 6 days. And he always spoke about how the 6-Day War was a massive turning point when it came to Soviet Jewry. And personally, what it did for him as he was going through all these struggles and eventually in jail, what it did for him to know that that the Jewish heroes of Israel, had been the messengers of this amazing miracle. 50 years after the reunification of Jerusalem, I had the opportunity to MC an event for the Mizrahi in Yerushalayim. You may recall that I was there. And on stage was Natan Sharansky, who I introduced, Rav Goren's son, which was incredible just to meet someone of his, heritage, of his, a child. Right. And the 3 soldiers in the photograph at the Kotel at the Western Wall from 1967. They're all on stage together. And I'm looking at Natan Sharansky, knowing what he has said to me before about 1967. And he is looking up at them. I never saw Sharansky, go Google-eyed over anybody. He's Natan Sharansky. He's always, and he's looking at them like, I cannot believe that I am being reunited, so to speak, even though they'd never met before, with the three people in the iconic photograph that I held next to me and that so many of my brothers and sisters held as a symbol of a Jewish miracle. The state of Israel and the city of Jerusalem in the most iconic historic war in Israel's history. And that I had, so you talk about meeting a hero, but getting that extra layer of appreciation because of my position, that I happened to be on stage because I was asked to MC this event. That was just a remarkable episode.
Wow. Just wow. I only because we're low on time, we like to thank Nachum Segal, the voice of the Jewish community, a hero in his own right. Thank you so much for joining us on the Schmooze this week. God willing, we should have a lot of future Schmoozim together, and we should just continue to bring light, identify the heroes in our community. Thank you so much, Nachum. It was great schmoozing with you.
A pleasure, gentlemen. Continued good luck. Great hatzlacha to you both.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
You're on the show. Thank you so much.
Akiva, I think we should have Nachum on the show every week.
I really feel like he'd be a great addition to our talk show. I really feel like he brought a lot of experience. I think we should hire him.
You would think that? I was thinking more on the just share stories every week. Like you don't even need to be up on current events. Like that. That's all he has to do to the table.
It was amazing. It was amazing. It was just, and honestly, like here's the thing. We could have gone on for, I don't remember if I said that, like we could have gone on for hours and hours and hours. I mean, he's the most experience in this field, has spoken with, so many people all over the world, and has been, like we started off with, the voice of Klal Yisrael. I think he kind of saw that niche. I mean, he said that he was originally starting off with rock and roll, but he saw there was a niche and he went for it, and he filled that gap of like, really like, it's like an app, it's like having everything in one place, I mean, I guess before apps, there was radio, but, everything's in one place. Like, this is where you come for your news. Not, you come for the weather, but you come for the Jewish news. You come for the, finding out about Jewish restaurants opening up. You find out, and then, different Jewish music. I think it's amazing. I think it's just incredible. It was amazing to have him on. Inspiring.
I mean, I think there's a part of this when we talk about innovation, there's like this concept in the Jewish community, like you need to get a stable, profession that you can rely on and easily transfer, and like so go into finance or go into accounting or go into law or medicine.
Right.
We're always going to need those things, and there's kind of this like notion that if you want to do anything off the beaten path, like it's not really the best idea, But you see how someone like Nachum Segal, like radio, who would have? No one ever says like you should go into radio. Like
right.
That's a really good market. So I think and it could have been different when he started, but to think like. You create a niche for yourself. You find a way to contribute to the community. Whatever you're passionate about, that's really what you should forge ahead with, and find a way to monetize it. And thank God there's so many people in our community who are prepared to help you with that. Regardless, like it's not just for doctors and it's not just for bankers. I think that's what Nachum really brings to the table on that philosophical level.
I read a book by an inventor, someone who has dozens or maybe even over 100 patents. He's the creator of Sky Vodka. He's also the creator of the movie Hoodwinked. He does a lot of different things. He's one of these guys. I'm blanking on his name. Worth $2 billion. Just I didn't get to meet with him, but I got to meet with one of his staff. And one of the things he says in his book, I read his book, was like, don't wait. Like if you have an idea, a lot of people think like, okay, we should wait. We'll plan out all the steps. We'll have this. We'll have that. And then when it's like finally finished, like then we'll go out. He's like, by that time, someone else will have done it. Like just if you have something, just jump in and do it. Like if you have an idea for a podcast, just jump in and do it. Like we're doing this. We've never, it wasn't like we had, like let's plan it and think and like we just started and now we're here and now we're really probably by the end of next week we'll be at 10,000 reach, which is amazing, and we're to all of our viewers. Just if you have an idea, people out there, if you have an idea, if you have something that drives you, a passion or whatever it is, just start, just do it. Just do it. I feel like we should make that our tagline. Just do it. I don't think anyone's taken it. Maybe? No? Maybe a little.
I think I might. You're right. I have a good logo idea.
It was my logo idea. Sponsored by Shalom Trivia. Thank you for coming to the Schmooze. Last week's question was, are you allowed to buy lottery tickets? Because gambling is typically frowned on in Judaism. The answer is, I hope so, because I have before. The answer is yes. The answer is, it's probably a machloket. I would imagine there's differences of opinions because 2 Jews, 8 opinions. You can buy a lottery ticket. A nice idea I one time heard from, I believe, Rabbi Frant, who he translated the Art Scroll Tehillim, amazing rabbi who I was merited to learn with once a week when I lived in Nachlaot in Jerusalem, and not one-on-one, but in a shir that he used to give in his living room. And he said, buy 1 ticket a year. You don't need to buy more than 1. If on Rosh Hashanah, it was decreed that you would win the lottery this year, you do your hishtadlut. He had this saying, you do your hishtadlut, you do your effort. He used to love saying hishtadlut and bitachon, right? Effort and faith in God. Yeah. He used to say, well, I know you know, Daniel. I'm saying to the people who are listening who might know.
But maybe I haven't heard this one.
So he used to say big B, little H.
Big B, little H.
A lot of bitachon, a little bit of hishtadlut, but focuses on the B. Here's a question for next week. You ready? I don't know the answer to this. I have to go look it up. You're not supposed to shave your sideburns if you're a dude in Judaism, right? You're supposed to keep these bad boys on, right? Right over here, the payas. Yeah. What if you're at a barber? This is like my nightmare. Not gonna lie, it's my actual nightmare. And the barber goes and shaves the whole thing off. This is my actual nightmare when I go to barbers, no matter when. This is why I love COVID. I hate COVID, but this because all the barbershops are closed, so I don't have to deal with this like monthly anxiety.
This is so sad. This is what keeps you up.
And this is what keeps me up at night. And boom, the whole thing is gone. Now you just have 1. Are you allowed to shave that one off, or do you have to keep it on?
Right, for the sake of symmetry and being able to leave your house, I feel like you need to.
Well, you're not allowed to embarrass someone else. You're not allowed to embarrass yourself either. So well, don't answer the question, Daniel. We'll find out next week.
My answers are never right anyways.
Fair. As an example, you think winning the lottery is no big deal, and yet I have won the lottery. I don't think that winning the lottery. No, winning the lottery.
I don't think you won the lottery. That's the distinction.
It's awkward for everyone that you're being so blatantly wrong on the air. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Schmooze. It's been great schmoozing with you.
The pleasure is mine, Rabbi Akiva.
Okay, good.
All right. See you next week.